Hey y'all, it's Ashley Bookishrealm and I'm back with another video. As you can see from the title of this video, we are here to do something really interesting. Well, maybe interesting is a stretch. I think this is something that I have actively talked about on my channel before. This is something that a lot of people have been having discussions about. As a matter of fact, I was just a part of a discussion that ended up happening on Erica's channel, Erica from The Broken Spine. She had a panel. It was me, myself and I. Thinking of the Beyonce song, Me, Myself, and I. It was me, Amara from Books Like Whoa, Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany, and Erica, and we were talking about book banning that's been happening recently. So, of course, if you've been here, you know that I'm a librarian. I naturally am keeping up with a lot of the stories that are happening around the country regarding book bannings and following the stories because it's definitely impacting us. And I eventually decided to react to a list that I found on the internet through Kelly Yang, and it was the No Left Turn CRT list, which these are books that they felt like were teaching critical race theory, and they felt like these books were divisive and racist, etc., etc. A whole bunch of crock to me. So I will also leave the link to that video up in the card symbol above. Now this is interesting. Texas has been a state that has been leading. Texas and Florida have been in the media quite a bit. I don't know statistically whether they're actually leading in the number of book bannings that are currently happening, but they have been in the news. They've been leading the news broadcasts about the book bannings that have been happening because, you know, their governors, their legislators are just very amped about removing these horrible, harmful books from curriculum. If you didn't catch that, that definitely was sarcasm. So, of course, as I go through, I'm looking at different things and doing some reading, and I came across this article that specifically talks about 50 books that parents want banned from school libraries, and this is in the state of Texas. So I thought that we would go through this list. I would react to this list, give a little bit of commentary. Doesn't mean I'm going to be familiar with every book on this list or why it's being banned. I'm really interested in looking at these lists right now because during, I think it's National Library Week in April of this year, the American Library Association will reveal the number, like the top books that have been challenged and banned of 2021. So I'm really interested in looking at these titles. I know that from the statistics that they've been pulling already, this year has been extremely excessive in the number of books that have been banned and challenged. So we're not really surprised at what we may see when the stats come out in April of 2023. But I'm interested in seeing the stats and the list that come out from 2021. But until then, I've just been like really trying to keep up with a lot of the stories. This is one that released a couple of weeks ago. I think a couple of different news outlets had picked up on it. The one that we're going to be looking at is from NBC News, and they are listing these 50 books. So let's go ahead and dive into it and see what we are walking into, my friends. Okay, y'all. So the first thing that we're looking at here right now is the beginning of it, where it just says, here are 50 books Texas parents want banned from school libraries. Like I said, this is NBC News, and it says records requests uncover dozens of attempts to remove library books from schools, nearly all related to titles dealing with racism, gender, and sexuality. So this is not surprising. This is not surprising at all. A lot of times, if you look at past lists from American Library Association, which is where I always pull my information because their Office of Intellectual Freedom does keep track of this stuff every single year. I made this a point in my participation in Erica's panel. Book banning and book challenging is not a new phenomenon. I just want everyone to understand that and realize that this is something that happens every single year. What we're seeing is an influx in the numbers, and there is a hyper fixation now on book banning and book challenging. This is not anything that's new. It's not that it hasn't happened before. It is something that happens all the time. It's just that you have a lot of people now who are trying to maintain a sense of power and certain structure, and so this is a way to maintain that power, to maintain, for lack of a better term, white supremacy in some of these cases. This doesn't mean that people who are liberal or leaning more to the left here in the US have not challenged books before. It is not just people who are more conservative or lean to the right that challenge. More frequently it is that case, but you do have people on all sides of the political spectrum who are challenging. But what we are seeing right now is more so a lot of conservatives who are challenging books that deal heavily with race, gender identity, sexual orientation, racism. Everything apparently now is teaching CRT. It's a very interesting thing. So I just wanted to give that tidbit before we jump into this video. And this seems to be kind of like a cover of things. The Michelle Obama one, sorry y'all, before we even jump into this, because this is interesting. So the Michelle Obama one, y'all, is interesting because I believe I watched a news briefing where they talked about this happening in Texas, and it was a parent who wanted a Michelle Obama biography removed because she believed it taught reverse racism. It's baffling. When you follow this stuff, it's just baffling. So this came out February 1st, so about the beginning of the month, and it says conservative parents have swarmed school board meetings in Texas and across the country in recent months to call for the removal of library books that deal with race, racism, sex, gender, and sexuality. Some parents have taken it a step further, filling out paperwork to formally challenge the appropriateness of library books and forcing school administrators to review them. So also another note, it's like I'm giving a lot of notes before we jump into the actual list. There is a process that school libraries, public libraries have in place when book challenges come. People don't just come in and say, I want this book removed, and the book is removed. There's paperwork that often has to be filled out. These books then go before a certain group of individuals and they review them and they make the final decision on whether they're going to be removed from the library or not. And there's something also to be said, about who's doing the reviewing. What does this board look like? Because if we're looking at a homogenous group of individuals, conservative, white, male, Christian, WASP, essentially, okay? If that is our board, then when anything gets brought to review, you're not going to have much of a debate going on. So always keep that in the back of your mind when you hear that these books are being sent to a group of people to review. If you ever have that situation, you need to also ask who's doing the reviewing and who's making these final decisions. All right, so let's jump into this list now. I think I've given enough anecdotes. Okay, so it says here that NBC News sent public records requests to nearly 100 school districts in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin regions, a small sampling of the state's 1,250 public school systems, and found 86 formal requests to remove books from libraries last year, the vast majority coming during the final 4 months of the year. Several titles were targeted in multiple districts. Drawing from those records below is a list of 50 books that Texas parents tried to ban in 2021. So the reason why I find this really interesting is that I wonder if these books are going to end up, if some of these books are going to end up on ALA's most challenged list of 2021. I believe that genderqueer is a high possibility that genderqueer is going to make it on the list because that started, I believe the whole challenge for genderqueer came out of Texas. Texas is a mess right now. Texas is just a mess. Sorry for all my viewers who live in Texas. I feel for you. I really do. Okay, so the first one, Drama by Raina Telgemeier, which is a middle grade graphic novel. I believe that this one, because of the fact, because it has queer rep in it. I have heard a lot. I haven't seen it formally like on ALA, but I have heard of drama being challenged because of the fact that it has queer characters. And of course, the representation of queer characters is going to cause kids to question their sexual orientation. The logic, it's not even logic, it's the lack of logic that just never ceases to amaze me. And whenever I have to deal with these things, it never ceases to amaze me, y'all. Okay, so the next one we have When Wilma Rudolph Played Basketball, which is so this is a book that touches on racism. I did not know that Wilma Rudolph even played basketball, which is interesting, but it's removed from libraries because it opens prejudice based on race. Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evanson. A parent complained that this coming-of-age novel about a Mexican-American character's journey to understanding his own sexuality and ethnic identity should be banned because it contains profanity, pornography, gambling, and homosexuality. I have been so surprised. I have no comment on that last one because it's bogus. I am so surprised to see parents digging into things like Nate. This is crazy to me. It's just, oh man, y'all, this is just, okay. So there's a subplot about a teenager who started to notice his attraction to other boys, and the parent who challenged it believes that books shouldn't discuss books sensitive or controversial topics such as gender and sexuality. Why is somebody's identity controversial? That's the part of all of this, y'all, that frustrates me so much about these parents who do stuff like this, is why is someone's identity controversial? Why is it controversial? At the end of the day, and I'm going to say this now because I know by the end of this list I'm going to be so pissed off. At the end of the day, if you want to determine what your children want to read, that is your business as a parent. I'm not going to tell another parent how to parent. I will be damned if I try to take something out of the hands of another child because I don't want my child to read it. That is a conversation between you and your child. You don't get to dictate what every child gets to read because of your personal beliefs. That's wild to me. What gives you the right to tell my child what they can and can't read? The audacity. It never ceases to amaze me. Okay, so this is another Nate book, of course, because it talks about gender identity and sexuality. The Blue Side by Toni Morrison. I'm not shocked by this one because this one is often challenged or banned because of the graphic description of rape, which there are some things where I am understanding the age appropriateness of a text. So this doesn't mean that I think that it should be banned or challenged. What I mean by that when I say age appropriateness of a text is that I don't think that The Bluest Eye is age appropriate for middle school students. That's what I mean. I can understand that, but just wanting to remove a book for the sake of removing a book and not really considering age appropriate. Out of Darkness. This is the first time I've ever seen Out of Darkness challenged or banned. I did not think about that at all. And a parent challenged it because it depicts a graphic sexual experience between minors. Here's the thing. I also believe that it's up to parents when they want to have the talk, if they want to have the talk, although I believe that parents should be having the talk about sex and consent and all of the above, which is why I don't think sex education should be taken out of schools. But I think that parents forget that we are in a day and age where these kids have more access to things than even I had when I was growing up. And it's not to say that I think it should be a free-for-all or that, we should just kind of be, lackadaisical with it. But I always ask, you think that your child is learning about sex via a book, or should you be concerned about your child learning about sex via social media, like being on TikTok all the time, or just being around kids who, are just discovering their sexuality? And do you think that they're going to learn it from a book, or do you think they're going to learn about it in other ways? And are you preventing them from learning about it in other ways? Are you just concerned about it being in a book? I don't know if we're taking all points of that into consideration sometimes. Ghost Boys by Jewel Parker Rhodes. Not surprised to see this one on here. The reasoning is so stupid, where it's saying that white children who attend this school district, this book makes them feel ashamed based on the color of their skin. No one wants a child to feel guilty for being born white. That's not the intent of talking about race and racism. But you want your children. I'm not gonna even get into that, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna get into that. Really? So Lauren Miracle had these text-based instant message books. These are old books. I'm surprised. But this one was banned because it contains a description of oral sex with minors. Wow. Me, Earl, and Dying Girl. I don't think I've ever seen that one challenged before. It has obscene language and it could lead students to become over-sexualized and objectified. How? Okay. White Bird, A Wonder Story by RJ. Wow. I've never seen this one before. I've never seen this one challenged before. So this is a graphic novel. It's a middle grade graphic novel. And it's about a Jewish teen living in France after the Nazis seized power. And the parent believed that it should be banned because it's biased and could lead to the skewing of a young child's mind. What is bias about history? True history. You know, that's an example of people wanting to whitewash history, to be honest with you. That's okay. Ground Zero. Alan Gratz's book? What? Okay, a parent said this one should be removed. It tells the dueling perspectives of an American boy and an African girl and should be removed from schools because it depicts American soldiers as callous, evil, and terrorists, and because the author mentions the racial or ethnic identities of every character. I just don't understand. Okay, y'all, I don't think I was prepared for this, sitting down to film this. I really don't think I was prepared for this. I really don't. I don't get it. Why are you trying to hide reality from your kids? Why are you trying to hide the truth? Oh my gosh, it's sick. This is why this country's a mess now. Fun Home, a family. Okay, so this is a memoir. Okay, a parent said it should be I've never heard of this one before, y'all, but a parent said it should be removed because of graphic descriptions of sexual violence. Jack of Hearts and Other Parts. This is my first time ever hearing about this one, and it's about a 17-year-old gay student who has lost his sex and isn't ashamed of it. City of Thieves. I haven't heard of that one. It's set during the Nazi siege of Leningrad. It includes pornographic imagery that's not suited for majority of readers. That's what a parent wrote, unless you're into that. Genderqueer. This one probably is going to pop up on ALA's list when it drops in April, which I will be reacting to that list when it does come out in April. I'm not surprised. Genderqueer is literally like the point that even made my state kind of snowball into this. I went criminal charges pressed against librarians who are buying this material. It's a whole bunch of crap. These people are nuts. It's crazy. But yeah, I'm not surprised that genderqueer is on this. This one summer. Okay, personally, I didn't like this graphic novel. I just didn't like it. But they said that it should be removed because it features LGBTQ characters and it has a recurring theme of oral sex. First of all, that's like a teen graphic novel, so I'm guessing somebody in some high school wanted that removed. We Are the Ants, because of masturbation and genitalia. The Breakaways, because it has a transgender character. Yes, I kind of figured that one. I've seen that one. All Boys Aren't Blue, Poor George M. Johnson. They are having a difficult time right now. Their book is really getting challenged quite a bit, and a lot of the time their book is getting challenged because of a lot of stuff that's being like read out of context. I actually watched the school board go through and give reasons why this book should not be on the shelves, and a lot of it was out of context, and it's wild. But they've done quite a few interviews talking about their book being challenged, so I would just even visit their Instagram to kind of see what they've been saying about it. It's quite heartbreaking. The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I have seen this one challenged before. That's not a first one for me. Here goes Michelle Obama biography. I'm going to read this word for word because I have to read this one word for word. A Katy parent asked to have the children's biography of the former First Lady banned at every grade level because the parent said it unfairly depicts former President Donald Trump as a bully, and because Obama's reflections on race gave the impression that if you sound like a white girl, you should be ashamed of yourself. This was the parent who said that this was reverse racism. I just want you to know that. Oh, Stamped, not surprised. This was on the 2020 list of the most challenged and banned books for ALA. So to see Stamped on here, this is Stamped Racism, Anti-Racism, and You by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi. Not surprised. Not surprised. Okay, So there was this whole thing about New Kid by Jerry Craft. This book, it's a middle grade graphic novel. It is about a black boy who is going to a predominantly or all white school, and it's about him having to deal with the fact that he's going to a predominantly white school. And there was a parent, I don't know if this was in Texas or if, yeah, so it must have been in Texas. Okay. So I actually watched the news briefing on this, and it was so interesting because Jerry Craft was supposed to come and speak to the school, and this mom was furious that they were going to be reading this book because she felt as though the book taught critical race theory. I feel like critical race theory is now a buzzword. People don't even know what it is. They feel like anything related to race is critical race theory, and I'm like, you're so wrong, but you know, go off, I guess. Class act, of course we're going to see class acts. Kids will be brainwashed that one race is superior than the other, and it will make white children feel guilty. Salvage the Bones. This is the first time I've seen this one for a challenge or a ban by Jessamine Ward, and a parent said they object to the explicit description of a teenage girl having sex with boys in her social group. 27, Woke by Mahogany L. Brown, Elizabeth Acevedo, and Olivia Gatwood. I actually have that book up on my shelves. This is one that I actually read to my daughter. And a father in a Dallas suburb said that it, which is a collection of poems, by the way, by women of color on topics relating to social justice, activism, and discrimination. He said it promotes terrorism. When you, like, it's one thing when you are looking at a list of these books, just looking at a list. But when you get down to the nitty gritty of the reasoning behind why some of this stuff is banned, it's disheartening. It's so disheartening. Not My Idea, a book about whiteness. This is the first time that I've seen this one. I'm not surprised. Not surprised that this one is on here. A parent said that no books that promote Black Lives Matter movement should be available to children. Of course not. How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. That's self-explanatory. I understand why. I don't understand, but I'm not surprised that that's on there. And the parent who challenged that one said it should be replaced with Bibles. I was not prepared for this, y'all. Whenever I do this stuff, like, I promise y'all, like, I never read through it before I actually react to it, because you're getting my authentic reaction, and I'm so pissed off. I'm so angry right now. I'm so incredibly angry right now. It's because people legitimately believe this stuff. They believe this stuff. Yeah. I'm not surprised to see A Good Kind of Trouble in here because it directly relates to the Black Lives Matter movement. We Rise, We Resist, We Raise Our Voices by Wade Hudson and Cheryl Willis Hudson. Rest in peace to Cheryl Hudson. She recently passed away, and it was challenged by our band, challenged by a parent because it promotes discrimination. These people want, this is white supremacy at its finest. Oh man. God forbid we challenge anything that puts white people at the top. God forbid we do that, because it's discrimination. It's reverse racism. It's divisive. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Oh, jeez. On the bright side, I'm now the girlfriend of a sex god. Yeah, this is the, what are these called? I forget, the Georgia Nicholson books. Yeah, that's my first time ever. No, I think I've actually seen one of those challenged before. The Kite Runner. I have seen the Kite Runner challenge before. It's challenged because it depicts rape and sexual exploitation of minors. I actually read the Kite Runner in high school, but I think that it was age appropriate. Like, I was old enough to handle the content. I wouldn't give the Kite Runner to a middle school student, but I think in a high school setting, I think that it is appropriate, and they could handle the content. It's perfectly normal. It's a book about puberty. People don't want kids learning about puberty. Like, and 9 times out of 10, I always feel like the people who don't want their kids learning about puberty or don't want them having sex education or sexual health are the same ones who don't tell their kids shit at home. And this is the problem right here, where kids go into situations exploring their sexuality, not knowing what is what, not knowing what consent is, not doing the appropriate things, and that's when things go left, because they don't have the education. There should be no shame in talking about sex. These kids are out here, not every kid, I don't want to blanket that statement, but some of these kids are out here engaging in sexual acts, and you refuse to give them the tools that are necessary to make sure that they're doing the right thing, that they're protecting themselves and they're protecting others. I don't understand that. Like, bruh, like, it's uncomfortable. I get it. It's uncomfortable. I don't want to have to talk to my child about sex. It's going to have to happen though. I'm going to be uncomfortable when I have to have that conversation. But so she knows what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, consent on both ends, how to protect herself, how to protect others. Beyond Magenta, I'm not surprised. This one has been challenged and banned before, so I'm not surprised to see it on the list. Monday's Not Coming is a newer one. This is one that I've seen challenged in my own state. I've watched a school board meeting that has talked about Monday Is Not Coming. This book has been out for years, and all of a sudden it is now getting challenged, and I don't know why all of a sudden out of the woodworks now we want to challenge and ban it, and the book has been out for years. Same thing with Genderqueer. Genderqueer has been out for like 2 or 3 years, and we're just now going to challenge or ban it, which is why I always ask, these are the same parents who are like, oh, you're trying to indoctrinate our kids and da-da-da-da-da, and then I'm like, but how did you find out that this book even existed? This book literally has been on the shelf for years. It's been published for, it's one thing to challenge a book that you hear about that's coming out this year in 2022, but y'all are challenging books that came out in 2014, 2015, as if these books have not been published for years already. But no, you're being indoctrinated because you have to have somebody tell you that these books are not appropriate. You don't even know what's going on the shelf. Why are you concerned now, all of a sudden? Oh my gosh. It's probably the most pissed off I've ever been, like, filming a video. I've never been this pissed filming a video before. I am, oh God, I'm so pissed off right now. Oh my God. This is so ridiculous. More happy than not. I'm not surprised to see this one. I don't think I've ever seen it challenged or banned, but I'm not surprised to see it because it has LGBTQ storyline. George always gets challenged, y'all. Every single year that ALA puts out the list, George is on there. And it's no longer George, by the way, for anybody that is wondering. Alex Gino has renamed the book along with Scholastic. They have changed the book's title to Melissa because George is the character's dead name. And I think that Alex did a lot of thinking about it, and they felt as though the title should reflect the name of the character that is being discussed in the book. So the book is actually being republished, and it's called Melissa. But I'm not surprised to see that on there. What Girls Are Made Of. I don't think I've heard of this one. I haven't read this one at all. There's multiple descriptions of sex. I Am Jazz. Not surprised. That one gets challenged very often because Jazz is a transgender girl and they do not want those depictions in their schools, which I can't imagine being a human being and someone telling me, I mean, I'm black. So that in itself, people tell me, like, you know, my identity is a problem, but to be so young and to have people tell you, you know, I'm an adult at this point and it's not any less traumatic, but I handle it differently. But to be young, Jazz is older now. She's much older, but Jazz was hit with some awful stuff growing up as a child. I can't imagine. So you've been publicly shamed. I've heard of this book. I don't think I've ever seen this one challenged or banned before. That's interesting. King and the Dragonflies. Not surprised. By Case and Calendar. Not surprised. Yeah, not surprised because of the fact that it deals with racism and sexuality. Go with the Flow, which has to deal with your period. Because it's so inappropriate to talk about your freaking period. It's so inappropriate. That's so inappropriate. Why would we want books where people have the opportunity to read about having a period, a menstrual cycle? It's so inappropriate for those age audiences. Whereas a lot of young girls get their periods at like 10 years old and sometimes younger. But no, let's not tell them about what that means in terms of their health. Last Night at the Telegraph Club. This one is finna get pulled in a lot of places. This actually, Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe just cleared out awards wise. I mean, it racked up a lot of awards at the Youth Media Awards, but it is because it is about a lesbian relationship between a Chinese American teen and a white classmate set in the 50s. Word Girl and What's His Name. I haven't read that one, but it is one that deals with sexual orientation. Flamer, which I have heard of this one, and it is about a boy who's dealing with his sexual orientation. Milk and Honey. I've never seen Milk and Honey. I've never seen that one get challenged or banned. That's a shocker. Court of Mist and Fury, because there's explicit sex in the beginning. Yeah, I think that's probably why. It doesn't say here, but I think that's probably why. That's the first time I've ever seen Sarah J. Maas end up on somebody's list. 47 by Walter Mosley, which is a novel about a young slave boy who becomes swept up in a struggle for his own liberation. Because why teach about history? It's inappropriate. And Girls Like Us. And because of this one, because it includes descriptions of sexual abuse. All right, y'all. So, y'all probably have never seen me like this, shooting a video. And I think I always struggle. I struggle a lot with this stuff because it is challenging people's identities, their life experiences, who they are. And I don't think that that's anybody's place. I don't think it's anybody's place to dictate what someone else's child should and should not read. If you don't want your child to read certain materials, then you have that discussion with your child. Like, you don't try to dictate what is appropriate for anybody else's child except your own. And the fact that people are using things like these books to say that, oh, it's reverse racism, it's divisive, to teach children true history. And if you watch a lot of these like news clippings, I just implore you to do your own research. If you watch a lot of these news clippings, you'll find that these kids want to read about diverse stories. They want to read about other people's experiences. A lot of them have read these books and they say they don't understand why these parents are challenging these books. They don't understand, like, what is the big deal about it. And these parents are using this as a way to say they're concerned about the well-being of their children. And I'm going to go ahead and say it, and I really don't care if I get any pushback against it. I feel like for a lot of them, this has nothing to do about the well-being of the community of children. This has to do with maintaining a certain power structure, being pissed off because Trump is no longer in office, and wanting to push conservative ideals in every which way to maintain white supremacy. And I said it. And that's how I feel about it. You know, I don't understand, like, reading about a queer person's experience is good for parents to say, oh yeah, it's going to make my child question their sexuality. I don't get that. I don't get that. Talking about racism, it's going to make my child feel guilty for being white. There's no logic behind a lot of this stuff, and it's frustrating. It is so frustrating. I'm so frustrated reading that. And I should have known that mentally that was going to be tough for me to even look over, because the reasons behind it are just asinine. It just makes no sense whatsoever, because there's no logic. It is very much so about maintaining power structures. And because power structures are now being, like, people are trying to dismantle these power structures, people will do and say anything they can to make sure that they maintain that that it doesn't happen. And what better way than to use books, access to information, as a means to stopping people from knowing the truth. That's what we should do, right? We stop. It's history repeating itself. It's history repeating itself. We stop the access of information by limiting people, having books to read. And it's not these rich or middle class people who are paying for these book bannings. Like when we talked about in that live show, when there's a book banning happening, honestly, it doesn't impact me or affect me in any way because of the privilege that I have of a certain wealth. And, the fact that I have access to a public library, I have a way to get there, I work there. A book banning does not really mean anything to me at the end of the day, because if I want the book, I'm going to go get it. But for someone who may live in an area where they don't have the money to do so, there's an economic disadvantage there. They don't have the access to get to a public library. They don't have the technology resources to get to the internet. That's what we're doing, is we're keeping that gap wide. We're making sure we maintain that gap, that economic gap, that social gap. We're maintaining that. And that's why I think that people need to look beyond the fact that, this just increases my TBR, just makes me want to read it. Like, I understand that. I get that. But you have to understand that for you, that is a privilege. And for some people, it is not a privilege. It is not an honor for your book to end up. Jason Reynolds said it best. It is not a privilege, nor is it an honor for your book to get challenged or banned, because that is access being taken away from somebody who will never possibly get that access back. There are kids who are losing access to books where they can feel like someone sees them. They're losing access to it because these school libraries are all that they have. So forgive me when I get so frustrated, because I think about all the kids who need this stuff who don't get it, because there's a person who's in a privileged position, in a powerful position, that wants to take from them in a way that it's not going to take away from their kids. They're not protecting anybody. They're not even protecting their own kids, because a lot of these people who do this stuff come from, like I said, positions of power and wealth. If their kids really want to read this book, they can say, F my parents, I'm going to get this book anyway, because they have the money to do so. They have the internet access to do so. They can get it if they really want it. Whereas some other kids who don't have positions of power, don't have positions of wealth, or their parents don't, or the caregivers or whoever don't have that same privilege, once that access is gone, it's gone forever. So forgive me if I don't think that these parents are protecting anybody when they do this stuff. That's just my personal opinion. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. How are you feeling about these book bannings? What have you heard? Is this happening in your state? If you're not from the US, how do book bannings and challenges happen in your country, if they happen at all? As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll be back with a video soon. Looking for ways to support my channel. Follow me on social media. All those links will be down in the description box below. All right, y'all.